guys, Farmers Nerd here. We're going to talk about the 5 principles of regenerative agriculture. We've talked about regenerative ag a few times, about the benefits, carbon storage, improved crops, whatnot, but haven't really talked about what it is. There's 5 principles, and they all come from how natural systems work. So we can start with tilling. In nature, there's not really much in the way of tilling. You've got a mudslide now and then that creates bare soil, but there's no such thing in nature as the ground going around and being turned upside down and oxygen introduced into the ground, which decomposes all of your root matter, which is your organic carbon. So number 1 is no tilling. And then we get further into it. So if we do have a mudslide, we do have bare earth. The first thing nature does is goes in with weeds that are really hardy. They've got a really deep taproot, so you can get down to water supplies deep in the ground. They don't get eaten because they're pokey or poisonous or whatever. And they're really good at establishing where there's nothing else. So the first thing that comes in is weeds. And what that is in regenerative agriculture is always a living root. All of your ground always has to have something growing in it, or else you're going to get weeds come in to fill that place. And the weeds then, they grow up, they die off and get pushed down into the ground by wind and snow and rain, and become armor on the soil. That's regenerative step 3, armor on the soil. And that does a few things. That protects the microbes living in the soil from extreme heat from the sun. That becomes a cap over the top of the soil, so that carbon pumped into the soil doesn't just volatilize and turn into gaseous carbon, CO2. And it becomes a seedbed for many other types of plants to come in on top of those weeds. So those weeds are your first round, they are your toehold that allow other plants to come in. So that's no tilling, so we don't have bare soil. When we do get bare soil, we always have a living root. And that living root creates armor on the soil. And now we've got a place where things can grow. And the next thing is high diversity. So high diversity allows different sun configurations to all transfer energy into the soil. And they all produce different nutrients. So you've got your carbon fixers, you've got your nitrogen fixers, you've got your nitrogen storers, you've got deep tap roots, you've got fibrous root systems that spread out and add organic matter to the soil, which increases water retention and stores carbon. So all those different kinds of plants are natural. That's how nature does it. It has high diversity. So when we're going to be planting systems, we need to make sure we have high diversity. And then the last one is something that doesn't happen in nature. There's no synthetics. There is no Roundup. There's no synthetic fertilizers. Adding nitrogen into the soil. Because those things don't exist in nature. They kill all the microbes in the soil. They break down the food web and carbon structure and nitrogen structure in the soil, and your soil turns to dirt when you use synthetics. So if you're not going to use synthetics, you still need to get your nitrogen somehow. You need to get all of your nutrients somehow. And a lot of that comes from high diversity, but not all of it. And the last piece of regenerative agriculture is livestock integration. So, and specifically high density livestock integration. And they do a number of things. They push plant matter down onto the soil to help make that carbon cap, keep the carbon in the ground instead of volatilizing in the air. They pee, they poop, they stimulate plant growth naturally. So when a animal takes a bite out of a field, within a half an hour there are chemical reactions happening on the other side of the pasture through root connections that are all sending chemical signals to each other, telling them, hey, there's animals coming to eat us, and we need to stimulate our plant growth. But the key with livestock integration is you can't just put them out in the field in the spring and bring them back in the fall. You have to simulate herd grazing is called migration. You have to simulate migration patterns. So that means in today's day and age where we don't have cowboys pushing cows around, that means setting up hot wire pens and putting a lot of cows on a small area for a short amount of time. They eat down everything, they push down everything, you get pee and poop on everything, and then the next day or two you move them to a new pen. And you continue that across your entire acreage. And that is how you replace your synthetic fertilizers and herbicides. And so that's it. We don't till because it doesn't happen in nature. We need a living root in the ground at all times. Otherwise, we're going to get weeds that are going to do it for us. We need armor on the soil to protect from erosion, from sun, from heat, from wind, and to cap the carbon in the soil so it doesn't respirate out. We need high diversity so that there are many different types of plants all processing nutrients and doing different functions in the soil. Deep taproots, shallow fibrous taproots for carbon storage, and then water storage. And we need to not spray, which breaks down all those systems. And we need livestock integration to replace the spray. So there we go. The 5 principles of regenerative agriculture. You do those things and you will rebuild the healthier soil without a bunch of inputs that are going to cost you an arm and a leg and make less healthy hay or whatever carbon-based product you're growing. That's it. Till next time.